Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Before we begin, in the interest of full disclosure, I do need to tell you that I am not Mally. Fearing that she would not be able to make it through the event today without making an embarrassing scene, Mally has procured a look-alike android robot to stand in for her. It's amazing how lifelike they can make these days. For those of you who don't have the good fortune to have a stand-in android, we do have some tissues placed along the aisles just in case you should need them. You know, I'm not particularly good with numbers, but I did some figuring. The first one was easy. Patrick, during your time here, you have orchestrated 26 stewardship campaigns, every pastor's favorite. You have served communion over 300 times. By my calculations, you have preached about 1,200 sermons, and you've done about 608 highs and lows. And the other thing that you've done, among many, is you've done what is statistically unlikely, nigh unto impossible. You formed your group of flying pigs, a group of pastors who all had churches that were kind of stuck in a smallish state, and to take those that size of a church on to flourish is a very, very difficult task. So today, as you look around this place and see these faces, may that amazing reality sink deeply in to you. So what we're going to do today is not going to be reciting a lot of statistics. It's going to be a time of telling stories of our time together. It's going to be a time of remembering, of appreciation, affirmation, celebration of all of the good gifts that God has brought to Trinity Presbyterian Church in McKinney through the life and the ministry of our pastor, Patrick McCoy. So let's begin with prayer. Holy and compassionate God, creator of all that is good, we are truly grateful for this time set apart to reflect upon your bountiful provision for us in calling Patrick to be the senior minister at Trinity Presbyterian Church 26 years ago. We thank you for the gifts, the skills, and the deep spiritual wisdom he has brought to his leadership here. We thank you for the times we have shared together, times of laughter, times of worship, times of great joy, times of deep sorrow, mundane times, and times that we will never forget. We thank you for Rebecca and her steady support of him and the particular gifts and strengths that she has brought, particularly to our new members as they acclimate to our culture, to this place. We thank you for Micah and for David, who have grown up here. Folks have literally grown up with them and raised them, and they have left their mark on this place. Be present with us now, O God, as we recall together your goodness to us in giving Patrick as our pastor and friend. We especially ask you to richly bless Patrick and Rebecca this hour and this afternoon by all that is said and done here. And may the honor and the glory go to you, O Lord. In the name of Christ Jesus, we make this prayer. Amen.
As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go down, come on down. Oh, sisters, let's go down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the robe and crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh, brothers, let's go down, come on down. Come on, brothers, let's go down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sinners, let's go down, come on down. Oh, sisters, let's go down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the robe and crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above, ye heavenly host. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. There is peace in Christ when we learn of him. Feel the love he felt for us.
When he bore our sins, listen to his words. Let them come alive.
If we know him as he is, there is peace in Christ.
He gives us hope when hope is gone. He gives us strength when we can't go on. He gives us shelter in the storms of life. When there's no peace on earth, there is peace in Christ. In Christ alone my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song.
This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought and storm.
What heights of heaven, what depths of peace, when fears are stilled, when striving cease.
My comforter, my all in all, here in the love of Christ I stand.
No guilt in life, no fear in death. This is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry to final breath, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from his hand. till he returns or calls us home. Here in the power of Christ we'll stand till he returns or calls us home. Here in the power of Christ we'll stand.
Each of us has known Patrick through our own personal dimensions, many of us far longer than others. But during all of his time here, no one has experienced all the facets of Patrick's life. So, please enjoy with me a marvelous video, a reminiscence of Patrick's personal history, both serious and fun.
Don and I both served on the pastoral nominating committee when Patrick was called to come to Trinity.
Patrick was not looking for a new position at that time, so we had to kind of convince Patrick that maybe this was where he should be.
He finally put in an application for the job.
Patrick's first day at Trinity was November 14th, 1993.
Patrick could have done about anything that he wanted to do in life and been very successful with his intelligence, with his work ethic, with his integrity. The Lord called him to preach, called him to be a pastor. And we here at Trinity Presbyterian are the beneficiaries of the fact that he answered that call.
His sermons just spoke to me so every single Sunday practically, like he was writing them just for me.
One year, Patrick forgot to set his alarm for the time change.
And all of a sudden, I don't know, 10 minutes later, Patrick is running down the aisle with his robe just a-flying.
Intentionally welcoming all remains a strong priority. Trinity is a multi-generational congregation, from young children through seniors.
Rebecca and Patrick were so excited about young people being here, and every single Sunday during church, Rebecca would come up and say, "There's some young people over there, go talk to them."
Patrick has always gone the extra mile in personal ministry to the congregation's members.
We were in the hospital in Athens, Texas. Had to stay there for several days. And Patrick shows up. Of course, it's over 100 miles from McKinney to one way to Athens. They flew to Athens, rented a car. Patrick came to the hospital and prayed with us and encouraged us. It meant a great deal to Donna and I that he would take that much time and go that distance.
Jade was in the NICU for 4.5 weeks. Back when Jade was born, you didn't really have cell phones. And this phone starts ringing in the NICU. And everybody's like, "There's a phone in here?" And somebody answers it, and they said, "Does anybody in here know Patrick McCoy?" I was like, "I do." He was calling in to check on me.
When he needed a visitation with Patrick, he would call Patrick, and Patrick would jump on his motor bike, come to our house and sit and chat and visit with my Jim. Jim decided he wanted to join the church. And so he requested of Patrick that he be able to join the church in the Celebration Garden. So Patrick worked his magic and honored Jim's request.
Patrick has performed more than 300 baptisms and 65 weddings.
I was so excited when my girls were going to get married, and they both wanted Patrick to marry them. And Patrick was performing the ceremony, and all of a sudden, someone's car alarm went off in the neighborhood. And I just pressed my hands together. Oh, Lord, please make the alarm go off. Make the alarm go off. Patrick just kept on going like nothing was wrong. I have no idea what he said because I was praying so hard for the alarm to go off. But it finally stopped. I was like, oh, thank you. And then Patrick kept going, and it did it again.
Patrick also encouraged the congregation to grow deeper in faith through whole church book studies and sermon series. Those included the 40 Days of Purpose, as well as spiritual retreats, such as the Walk to Emmaus, and small groups, including disciple studies.
The opportunities I had to grow spiritually, that has been influenced by Patrick as my spiritual leader.
And when I would come in, storming in with all of my questions and all of my challenges, ready to have a theological fight, essentially, he would just ask me, well, what do you think about that passage? Or what do you think the answer to that question is? And that made me really mad because he should have just given me the answers. And that's what I thought he was supposed to do.
Trinity hosted a Presbytery meeting on September 11th, 2001, in which meetings were replaced with worship.
It was very powerful and very frightening, but I was glad that I was here at church. I just felt safer here at church for some reason.
And I really, when I think about it, I can't think of any other place I would rather have been on that day than right here at Trinity with my church family and my pastor, Patrick.
We all know that Patrick is an expert listener and has a special way of encouraging members to use their gifts and talents to further the work of the church.
He always listened until I said everything that I needed to say about what I came in there to say, and didn't interrupt, didn't say, but whatever. It was, I'm listening. Having that encouragement enables us to even look deeper into where God's leading us and how we are to use the gifts He's given us.
I was about to retire from the company I'd been with for 32 years, and I was really concerned at what I was going to do with my time after I retired. So I asked Patrick if I could visit with him, and I went into his office and I said, one of the things I've heard about that I know nothing about whatsoever is Habitat for Humanity. I didn't realize it, but Patrick had been wanting to get Trinity involved in Habitat. A year or so later, we built our first house with 2 other churches. It was the first time 3 churches had combined together to build a house for Habitat.
Patrick was by my side and a cheerleader through. He called me regularly while I was away and learning this career path. And he would pray with me and encourage me, and I really was at that season in my life that I really learned to appreciate what a gift that I had in Patrick.
He really helped me through that entire process and really was my champion the whole way and said, you can do it. Times when I was like, I just don't know if this is worth it. Like, why am I doing this? I would have never done that had he not pushed me to do that. I never thought I'd have a mentor in my life, and I obviously didn't think it was going to be my pastor, but it turned out that's exactly what it was.
When Patrick arrived in 1993, Trinity and its surrounding community were significantly smaller than they are today.
Those wheels in Patrick's mind were always working. He would always be telling us, these are the things we need to be thinking about. You look at this facility today and how much it's grown in the last 26 years. He was visionary, always looking forward and thinking about and studying about what we would need.
Sometimes I really wonder whether he gets to sleep, or rest, because the way I see him, I think he's thinking at night when he's supposed to be sleeping.
Looking back enables me to see the growth, not only spiritually and not only numerically, but just in every phase. Growth in missions, growth in hospitality. I mean, it's so exciting now to see us at this 5G life think it is an absolutely dynamic footprint of who we are.
It's so unusual for a pastor to stay so long and want to stay, and everybody wants him to stay. Yeah.
There've been no divisions at all. Well, not really. Nothing major.
There were several of the members in the session that had different opinions about what we needed to do. And Patrick just stopped the meeting. He said, we need to pray about this. He said, I want each of you to go to some place on the premises here. You can go outside if you want to by yourself. And I want you to pray.
And when we come back, we were able to talk about that situation and eventually come to a resolution.
Aside from the normal duties that you would expect that a pastor has, there's so much more behind the scenes that you have no idea that's going on.
The sewer used to always back up in the kitchen. Oh my gosh. All the time. About midnight, I started to smell it. And I was like, oh no. And so I went in the kitchen and it is just full. And I'm like, the next thing I did was call Patrick.
My husband Fred served as a property elder, and he and Patrick did many jobs at the church, some not too pleasant, but they became the best of friends.
Staying current with technology advances has always been Patrick's passion. Our website, social media, and Wi-Fi have brought Trinity's communications into the 21st century.
One of the greatest things that we did with Patrick's vision was to add to the streaming video. You know, Trinity members who were sick in the hospital right here in McKinney, or people who were at home for one reason or the other could not come to church, have benefited from that and are still benefiting from it.
As we reflect on the McCoy's time at Trinity, we have so many fond memories.
When Patrick and Rebecca moved to McKinney and brought baby David and Micah, Aunt Ruth was their go-to babysitter. She loved the times that those two children would come to her house, and David would sit on the floor of the den and play with her grandsons' dinosaur models and Legos, while Micah sat in the big easy chair reading a book.
Patrick organized a backpacking trip. We went up to Beavers Bend State Park in Oklahoma and did the David Boren hiking trail. As we got into the afternoon, Patrick started having some second thoughts about all of us staying out. He told us he was thinking about taking the group and going back to base camp for the night to make sure that everybody was safe and comfortable. It turned out it was the best decision possible. We all got back and everybody was thirsty. We all realized we hadn't been drinking enough water because we wanted to hoard the water that we'd brought. That night we got in the swimming hole and just cooled off, had the best time, got a good night's sleep, and everybody was a little bit better prepared the next day.
The men's ministry wanted to do something to honor Richard. I wanted it to be something that was beneficial to everyone in the church, that it was something that was really needed.
The Richard J. Montgomery Playground was dedicated in April 2005.
2010, Patrick and I left with a little bit of assurances to Rebecca that I'll bring him back alive and safe. By the time we were coming back, I think both of us had a once-in-a-lifetime experience that we never had before. I've never shared such a time with anybody throughout my life. And it was exciting. To me, it was a great pleasure that I did it with Patrick.
Patrick and I have had the opportunity to hunt quail over my bird dogs for many years. And much to the shock of the congregation, Patrick is not wonderful at everything. In fact, there are many, many quail Patrick did not have to give memorials over because he didn't kill them. They just flew away. I've also fished with Patrick, and I will tell you, Patrick is a much better fisherman than he is a hunter.
When you look at 26 years and all that he's done, he's given his life to this church. done so with passion and with good judgment and patience.
I don't think you can walk closely with another person or share in ministry with another person for 24 years and not feel something. And I am so grateful.
I want you to know that we are deeply grateful for all that you have given to this church, to this community. You've touched so many people in so many ways that a lot of times we already know now. We know how wonderful things were and how special certain services were, but a lot of times we don't find out until later. And when we look back on, wow, that was a really important time in my life. And you were there and you helped guide us, you talked us through.
We were going to say that Patrick has been our pastor for 25 years, and it has been just a great experience. We hit the jackpot.
Yeah, and then we were going to go.
I just want to say to you, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May God make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you and give you peace in this new season in your life. Amen.
Our first speaker is the Reverend Dr. Janet M. DeVries, the General Presbyter for Grace Presbytery. Grace includes 140 congregations in Central and Northeast Texas, from Texarkana to Stephenville, Rockdale to the Oklahoma line, and to Louisiana. She came to the position in 2010, most recently from over 10 years as Synod Executive with the Synod of the Southwest, that is Arizona and New Mexico. Reverend DeVries has held administrative leadership positions in the PCUSA for over 40 years. That included service at the National General Assembly level, Synod, and presbyteries. A preacher's kid, Jan grew up in Presbyterian manses from Chicago to New York. She's a graduate of Hope College in Holland, Michigan, Union Theological Seminary in New York City, and received her Doctor of Ministry degree from McCormick Theological Seminary in Chicago. She comes from a family of Presbyterian ministers, including her father and sister. Her late husband was also a Presbyterian minister. Jan lives in Bedford, in the Mid-Cities area of Dallas-Fort Worth, with an office at the Presbyterian Mission Center in Las Colinas. She loves art, travel, music, and needlepoint, and is glued to her computer way too many hours a day. Please welcome the Reverend Dr. Jan DeVries.
Thank you. It's a privilege to speak about Patrick on behalf of the Presbytery. What you don't know is that when I first came to Grace Presbytery, Patrick was invited to be part of a short-term Presbytery committee on visioning for the future. I hunch his first response was, "Oh no, I had a weak moment," and said yes. So our first meeting was a room in this very building. At that meeting, as it wore on, Patrick turned to me and essentially said, "I've spent a career in ministry trying not to serve on Presbytery committees." I asked him why, and I won't tell you exactly what he said, but suffice it to say that I learned some things about Grace Presbytery and what I had better never say or do, at least in the room with Patrick. Always I'm reminded as I've begun a new call that there were people before me and that the ghosts of Christmas past haunt the introduction of someone new, even a general presbyter. So it is a great privilege for me to say to you that Patrick and I have become dear friends. not because I fish, not because I have grandchildren, not because I preach every Sunday, just because the grace of God showed up that day 9 years ago and trust and respect got built. It was also the grace of God that Patrick responded to an invitation to serve in an at-large position on Presbytery Council and did so for 6 years, including 2 years as moderator of council. A Presbytery Council is the equivalent of a session for a presbytery. One of Patrick's gifts was highs and lows, was to invite people to reflect on how God was at work in their lives, what their personal journeys and challenges were, what they were grateful for, and always to make room for everyone at the table to hear a voice and to have a voice. He employed, that is to say, some of the ways you all do ministry here at Trinity for Grace Presbytery. Then Trinity responded to a Presbytery-sponsored program on creating cultures of generosity. It was wonderful to see the team from Trinity and Patrick work together. And the results of your video that next year, the focus on stewardship, by whatever name you call it, was terrific. It helped me begin to learn the many talents of this congregation, its can-do spirit, Patrick as a partner with all of you, the ability to take risks for all the right reasons, and to learn along the way for years. But one skill Patrick has that is a huge gift is that he grew up with this congregation. Patrick, as you saw in the video, didn't come to McKinney when it was becoming a Texas destination for homeowners and businesses. He came when it was moving from a smaller community to what it is today. Not all pastors know how to grow with churches for so many years. In fact, most don't. Although a couple of Patrick's friends here today have done the same thing, and a couple have retired ahead of Patrick. That was how pigs learn to fly. When a pastor grows with a congregation, that means the pastor has to be always open to God's Spirit, because God keeps recalling, not as in total recall, or not as in a deficient car part, but keeps recalling pastors and saying, I've got a new call for you, but it's with the same congregation. It also says that Patrick has consistently understood that the session and its committees are his and the church's best partners. He's the best of what Presbyterians understand about ministry, that it's never primarily about the pastor, but always about ministry. And therefore, ministry doesn't look the same as it did in 1993 or even 5 years ago. I thought of that when Patrick sent me the pictures of the dedication of McCoy Chapel. Several months before, I'd met him for lunch, and he wanted to show me the chapel without the new floor, but painted and the architecture done. He was ecstatic. And then the great reveal and dedication when you surprised him. How could he not be emotional? A tribute to him, but also the renovation of a great space for this congregation. A new repurposed gathering space for ministry. And isn't that the story of all of these 26 years? What I've learned about Patrick is also personal, but in that way that personal sometimes becomes public knowledge. I've come to appreciate the dance he and Rebecca have done with 2 careers, with 2 sons they adore, with parents whose physical challenges taught both Rebecca and Patrick when they'd retire, and they'd do it before they were unable, with grandchildren they adore, whose locations cause Patrick to hop in the RV and head for Albuquerque, or for him and Rebecca to fly to Portland. When one of the babies moved to Portland, Patrick announced to me that he and Rebecca were applying for a Southwest Airlines credit card to accrue miles for more trips. Several weeks ago, I sent Patrick a card which had a metal button on it which said, "Well deserving of retirement." And I saw Mally last night and said, I bet he's not worn that once into the church. So today I have another card, Patrick. This one is an application for retirement. Actually, Patrick doesn't need to apply, but I bet he can fill it out. And I put his name on the first line so he can't pass it off to someone else. So, among other things here, it asks for your worst job and your best job. It asks for why you're retiring, which include too old to work, too many hobbies on the go, too many TV shows to catch up on. For health reasons, I am required to only do things I want to do. All my friends are doing it. Strong desire to travel. Strong desire not to work anymore. The hobbies include not all of his hobbies: gardening, blogging, spoiling grandchildren, seashell collecting, windsurfing, researching family lineage, and jazz guitar. So there's a sample list of what you can do in retirement. Then it says, do you have the lack of responsibility and motivation required for a successful retirement? You must answer either yes or no, not sometimes. So Patrick will complete his application for retirement. But I'd like to end with a prayer poem of Walter Brueggemann titled Seeding, as in C-E-D-I-N-G, our end to you. It strikes us we know less about ends than we imagine. We sing our explanatory doxologies. We reiterate our concluding slogan that thine is the kingdom and the glory and the power. We add our confident, loud amen to our best petitions. But truth to tell, we cannot see the end. When we do see the end, we do not know its meaning, whether termination or transition. And so, like our many fathers and mothers always, we trust where we cannot see, eating what we are fed, taking what of recognition we can muster, restless and present under a myriad of surveillances, but finally ceding our end to you and our simple final prayer. Come among us, Lord Jesus. Come to your church in bewilderment. Come to our state in its vexation. Come to our world in its insomnia. Grant us peace with justice, peace with joy, peace at the last, peace on earth, and glory to you in the highest. Amen. Patrick, welcome to this moment in your life and in the life of this congregation, which has loved you and Rebecca in more ways than they know how to tell you. Thanks be to God for your service.
Our next speaker is the Reverend Chuck Treadwell, rector of St. David's Episcopal Church in Austin, Texas. Patrick and Chuck met at a ministerial alliance meeting in 1993 when they were both new pastors in McKinney. They've been friends for 25 years, sharing a passion for fishing and reading. Please welcome the Reverend Chuck Treadwell.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the invitation to get to be a part of this celebration and to honor Patrick and Rebecca and the ministry that they have had here at Trinity and McKinney and the place that Micah and David have held in the life of this congregation. I think the real reason I was invited is not just because we fish and hunt and read and hike together, but because of all of Patrick's gifts and graces, there is one thing he is incapable of doing, and that is telling a story in 5 minutes. This might be a bit of a challenge for me as well, because I too am a preacher, I have a microphone, and you look really comfortable. And it would be rude for you to get up and walk out, so well, let's see if we can do it. To honor Patrick as a friend, I could go through so many things, and I could talk about particular character traits, but I think it might be best just to tell you a story that helped me learn the things that are foundational to the character of Patrick McCoy, and one of the reasons that we remain such fast friends 25 years later. I think it was 1998, and Patrick and I took our boys, my son Caleb and his son David, on a fishing trip during spring break. It was cold and windy, and we had camped. The tent was tied to rocks and rearview mirrors of the pickup truck, and Chris was fighting it, trying to keep the tent in. Finally, one morning, the wind had lay, and we thought we had some time to go fishing for a little while before the wind got back up. So we launched out, and Patrick had just bought a new old boat. And it was a small bass boat, low profile, but it was fun, and it was his new bass boat, and we were very excited. And so we motored across the lake, got into this deep cove, fished for a while, caught enough fish to keep the boys interested, at least. But then we noticed the trees were beginning to move, and it was beginning to bang, and we should probably get on back across the lake before it became too dangerous. As we idled out of that cove and then picked up speed and we got out onto the main lake, we realized we had waited too long. And so the wind is high and the seas are high, and they're getting higher by the minute, and this is a very small boat. And the wind is going across the direction we need to go, and so we're taking water over the gunnel, and we turn it into the wind, and Patrick is doing his best to manage the boat. Going into the wind, now water is coming over the bow. It's getting more and more dangerous. We take the boys and tuck them in between us on the bench and make sure that their life jackets are buckled. And at one point, Patrick and I looked at each other cautiously, having a very silent conversation that was, how long can little boys be in 50-degree water before they have hypothermia? This was a serious situation. The boat was filling up. And then Patrick remembers it's his new boat. He'll turn on the bilge pump. Perhaps the bilge pump will catch up with the water that's coming in. He turns it on, and it doesn't work. So I scurry around, I check the connections. It all looks like it's right, but I don't really know what I'm looking at in electronics, but we can't get it to work. And so the boat is beginning to fill. And we finally get it to where we're going into the marina. The wind is still battling and blowing right where we need to go. The boat is sinking deeper and deeper. We get close to the ramp, and we fling the boys up onto the pier. Patrick turns the boat back out. I run to the truck, back the trailer down as quickly as I can. He turns the boat around and just kind of crashes it into the trailer because it is so full of water. And it just sits there. We attach it with the line, and then for the next hour, we gently pull it a little bit out of the water, and we watch the water pour from bow to stern back into the lake. It is completely full. Now, as we're watching all that water drain out, and we're standing there talking to the boys, and we have that nervous laughter that you always have when you almost died. And as we had conversations and watched the water drain and made the chuckles, but also the serious conversations, I realized some things about Patrick. I learned that during that whole experience, when we really didn't know what was going to happen, he remained calm. And he remained focused, and he was steady in the storm. He never panicked. He never showed that we were in danger, neither of us, or we're all going to die kind of people. But this was a dangerous situation. He stayed focused, and he stayed calm, and he stayed steady in a storm. I think that's one of the reasons then that I knew why Patrick was my friend, because I need a friend who is calm and steady in a storm. And it's also, we learned, that his boat had a master power switch. And the bilge pump works just fine. Patrick, I have loved every minute of our friendship, and we have weathered storms together, both personally and in our own personal lives, and your work here at Trinity and my work at St. Peter's and at St. Paul's and now at St. David's. Life is filled with those kind of storms, and it is filled with joy and pleasure and love and hard and difficult things. And you have been my companion through all of those for me. And I've had the honor of being a companion with you through those. And I look forward to more and more stories and watching you buckle your life jacket, which you do always now, and turning on the master power switch. Thank you, brother.
Patrick's going fishing all of the time. I'm a going fishing too. That's your life, your sweet wife. I'm gonna catch more fish than you. Many fish bite if you got good bait. Here's a little tip I'd like to relate. More fish bite if you got good bait. Patrick's going fishing, yes, he's going fishing. I'm a going fishing too. Patrick went down to the fishing hole with his favorite pole and line. Cast the line on in and caught a 9-pound rainbow. Brought him home for supper time. Many fish bite if you got good bait. Here's a little tip I'd like to relate. More fish bite if you got good bait. Patrick's going fishing, yes, he's going fishing, and I'm a going fishing too. Little brother about to run me out of my mind. Can I go fishing with you? So I took him down to the fishing hole. What do you think he did do? Pulled a great big fish from the bottom of the pond. He laughed and he grinned and he was really gone. More fish bite if you got good bait. Patrick's going fishing, yes, he's going fishing, and I'm a going fishing too. Put 'em in your pot, put 'em in your pan, cook 'em till they're nice and brown. Make me a batch of buttermilk pancakes, you can chew 'em all up and chomp 'em all down. Many fish bite if you got good bait. Here's a little tip I'd like to relate. More fish bite if you got good bait. Patrick's going fishing, yes, he's going fishing, and I'm a going fishing too. Patrick's going fishing, yes, he's going fishing, and I'm a going fishing too.
Our final speaker is Patrick's older son, Micah. He comes to us from Albuquerque, New Mexico, where he and his wife Alice and daughter Betty Lou live. Micah serves as the communications director for the ACLU of New Mexico, managing overall communication strategy. Before joining the ACLU in July 2009, Micah worked as a freelance writer in Austin, Texas. After graduating from Austin College with degrees in sociology and Spanish, Micah spent a year in Kenya. There, he worked as the communications coordinator for the East Africa Regional Office of Church World Service, a relief, development, and advocacy organization. Micah also served as a volunteer coordinator for No More Deaths, an immigrants' rights and border advocacy organization based in Tucson, Arizona. Micah is an avid fly fisherman and snowboarder. He is also the author of several plays and acts in live theater locally in Albuquerque. Please welcome Micah McCoy.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me to speak at this special event celebrating my father's long career of ministry in the Presbyterian Church, and more specifically the past 26 years he spent here at Trinity. Some of you sitting here know me quite well, and you probably have plenty of embarrassing stories to share about me as a kid, and I'll thank you to keep those to yourself. Probably most of you know me more as a concept than a person, as more than 16 years have passed since I moved away. A lot has changed with this church community since I left, and even more has changed since I left Trinity, and even more has changed since we first moved to Trinity in 1993. When we moved from Sherman, Texas to McKinney back in 1993, McKinney was a sleepy North Texas county seat of a little over 20,000 residents. Now, I remember 8 years old looking around when we first arrived thinking, this place is all right, but it's no Sherman. When we got here, there was a lot of buzz. Everybody was really excited about this hot new restaurant about to open in town, Applebee's. McKinney was coming up in the world. I was reminded of how much McKinney has changed yesterday when I went downtown, and outside the courthouse I was accosted by a clean-cut young man in white shirt and black slacks. And I didn't want to waste his time, so I patiently explained to him that I was Presbyterian and had no interest in Mormonism. He in turn patiently explained to me that he had no interest in my Presbyterianism and would very much like to park my car for me. The valet service is sponsored by McKinney Audi. Audi's park free, just so you know. So yeah, McKinney has changed, and the McCoy family arrived right at the start of the population explosion that would make McKinney for a time the fastest growing community in the United States. And when my father arrived at Trinity in '93, the church was also at a moment of great transition. Trinity had just made a difficult decision to leave their beloved but dying church in downtown and build a new building on land donated by the Joplin family on a hill amongst the cow pastures where housing developments were popping up seemingly overnight. At that time, the church's membership was starkly divided between old McKinney and new McKinney. And you were not old McKinney unless your family had arrived here by covered wagon. So it was a big challenge to lead in a way that honored the history, traditions, and people of a church that had been part of the community since before the Civil War, but also help the church grow, adapt, and evolve as young families joined, adding new vitality, ideas, and worship styles. It was an exciting time for the church, but it was also kind of a tense time. Even though I was young at the time, I remember it well. We did not always manage to relate to one another with the kindness and grace our shared religious tradition asked of us. It was a transitional period that demanded leadership that was patient, compassionate, confident, and visionary. And I think it was no accident that Patrick McCoy was the pastor who answered the call at that moment in this congregation's history. Now, as a new father myself, I'm learning that part of balancing a career in parenthood means that sometimes you have to drag your kids to work stuff, toss them some crayons, and hope for the best. Things weren't so different when I was a kid, and because of that, I got a front row seat to the daily business of my father's ministry to this community. I accompanied my father to countless visits with people in the congregation. We'd visit elderly folks who weren't able to get out of the house much anymore. We'd go to hospitals to visit with people about to undergo scary surgeries. We'd also visit folks for reasons that I couldn't immediately see or understand. But in the end, we'd always bow our heads, hold hands, and pray. And although I always bowed my head. For some reason, I never closed my eyes. So I remember the hands, hundreds of them, old hands, young hands, maybe your hands. I remember hours wandering through this empty building, just bored to tears, as my father counseled couples who were preparing to marry, couples struggling to make marriages work, families experiencing grief and loss. I've woken up and listened just beyond the doorway of my father's study as he wrote sermons deep into the night, pounding at the keyboard, too hard, like unnecessarily hard, like he forgot that he hadn't operated a manual typewriter since 1974. You could always tell when he got inspiration because it sounded like a burst of machine gun fire coming from the study. And then he would look at what he wrote and mutter at it and rehearse it and edit it until he got it just right for Sunday morning. I've witnessed countless baptisms, weddings, and funerals. And the funerals, when somebody in the church died, Dad dropped everything. It didn't matter whether we were out of state, on vacation with the whole family. He almost always made it back. And this is something I want to talk a little bit more about because I think it's illustrative of the kind of pastoral care my father has provided to this community. No matter how overextended or overwhelmed he was, he never phoned it in. I've been to funerals where other pastors speak, and I've been to those where my father does, and the difference is manifest. Funerals I've seen other pastors perform, you can often tell are kind of cut and paste affairs. But some of you know here know when a loved one passes, Patrick McCoy will sit down with your entire family and listen. He'll listen for hours and soak up the stories, the laughter and the heartbreak and the triumphs and tragedies. At the memorial service, he comes ready to truly celebrate a life, to show the full arc of a person's journey in this world, and then help those of us left behind find comfort in the transition from life to afterlife. It's because of this kind of pastoral care and leadership that this congregation continued to grow. It's likely the reason that you are sitting here today. But growth isn't just measured in the size of a building or the number of butts and pews on Sunday. Some of the most important growth that Trinity has experienced is less quantifiable in nature. I think it's no secret that many people in this room might not have felt as welcome in this community 26 years ago as you do today. Maybe because of the color of your skin, or because you are a person who has a lot of doubts or difficult questions. Maybe the family you've created isn't included in the standard cookie cutter set. And maybe your child won't pretend to be someone they're not. Maybe you struggle with mental health or addiction. Maybe another religious community caused you harm in the past. All of us are complicated people, and our paths are seldom straight. One of the things I admire most about my father's professional legacy is that under his leadership, Trinity has become a place where complicated people and all their baggage and mess find belonging. So, now we find ourselves again in a time of transition. After more than 2 decades of service and leadership in this community, my father is leaving. He will transition towards spending more time playing with his grandchildren, going fishing with me, and you, the people of Trinity, must transition too. Many years ago, the elders, some of whom I see here sitting here tonight, after much prayer and deliberation, made a bold decision to leave their comfort zone and build a church on a hill. Keep making bold decisions. Keep leaving your comfort zone. Keep building. Thank you.
There's a ship out on the ocean at the mercy of the sea. It's been tossed about, lost and broken, wandering aimlessly. And God, somehow you know that ship is me. 'Cause there's a lighthouse in a harbor, shining faithfully, pouring its light out across the water, so this sinking soul can see that someone out there still believes me. On a prayer there's a moment that we all come to, long time in our space, where all that we've done we can undo if our hearts in the right place. On a prayer in a song, I hear your voice, and it keeps me hanging on, raining down against the wind. I'm reaching out till we reach the circle's edge. You come back to me again and again. I see my yesterdays in front of me, unfolding like a mystery. You're changing all that isn't used to be. On a prayer in a song, I hear your voice, and it keeps me hanging on, raining down against the wind. Oh, I'm reaching out till we reach the circle's edge. When you come back to me again, when you come back to me again.
With typical retirements, guests expect to contribute to marking the occasion and express some level of appreciation. Many of those gifts are simply perfunctory, usual, mostly boring. Well, Trinity's congregation members are far more involved and genuinely caring. We thank you, Patrick, for your gifts over so many years of faithfulness to each of us. Please step up to the chancel with me. Our presenters, Rebecca, please. Our presenters represent the entire Trinity congregation: Connie Clemens, Linda Hackney, Jerry Rogers, Bud Ward, and Barbara Williamson.
When Patrick agreed to be the pastor at Trinity, we were doubly blessed. With Patrick came his amazing wife, Rebecca. Rebecca has done about every job here at Trinity, from lay reader to new members. Her list of talents is endless. We will miss her talents. We will miss her. However, I know that the part most of us will miss is her kindness, her warmth, and her sincerity. This is not a goodbye, Rebecca, but a thank you for all you have done. We are blessed to call you our friend.
Patrick and Rebecca, we will always remember you, and we want you to always remember us. We want you to have warm and cozy thoughts about us. So we decided to make you a friendship quilt. And so Jerry and I made the quilt, and then most of the congregation has signed the back of the quilt.
Oh my goodness, that is wonderful. What a wonderful, perfect gift.
If any of the Trinity family have not signed the quilt, we're going to be in 301 for about an hour when this is over. You can come by and still sign the quilt.
Well, Patrick and Rebecca, it is my distinct pleasure to tell you about something that I hope will be a really big surprise. When we heard about your retirement, a number of members of the congregation asked could they make a gift to Patrick and Rebecca's retirement. Well, the retirement committee considered it and came up with a way in which the members could make non-deductible gifts. Well, the reason is because the gift becomes tax-free. That's good. So I'm pleased to announce to you that this congregation has gifted you more than $15,000. Oh, wait a minute. Barbara just reminded me I forgot something. It's actually, I forgot about the matching gifts. This congregation has gifted you more than $24,000. Okay, Barbara says to quit messing with you. Let's take a look at the real gift. Barbara, you and Ray want to uncover that? Patrick and Rebecca. We hope that this rubber check for more than $34,000 will help you go into retirement with smiles on your face. It sounds apparent to me that the congregation was listening to your sermons on extravagant generosity. This congregation has shown their extravagant love for the two of you. Patrick, would you like to make some comments?
I would. Wow.
I should have done this every 5 years. I am overwhelmed by the thought, imagination, energy, generosity, and effort that you have invested in this retirement ceremony. It has exceeded my expectations so far that I don't know how to describe it. The planning committee, I think led by Beth Sevchek, you pulled the wool over my eyes very well, and it's amazing. But the comments and the videos and the songs, and when I saw Tammy walk in the door and Noel, I thought, oh my gosh, whew, wonderful. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank my brother-in-law, Griff, for making his way from New York City, for Micah, Alice, and Betty coming from Albuquerque, for my sister, Debbie, and her two girls, my nieces, Rachel and Elizabeth. Elizabeth's still in transit. We have a great nephew, Mondo, and this little girl is named for my mother, Cora. And so that's just, we've got a Betty and a Cora now. Rebecca's mother was Betty, so the generation goes on. Ernesto, he's with Mondo, being a good dad. Nancy, Marchand, and Margaret. I went into Lama's class with what I would call not the best attitude. I had a pillow under each hand, and I went in muttering, I'm going to be the oldest person here. And then I saw Nancy and Gordon. And we had a Lamaze party after the kids came, and they became members of the church and part of our lives and family in so many ways. So Nancy, thank you for being sort of the most wonderful friend to Rebecca. And Micah and Margaret, occasionally people thought they were twins, both redheads. Appreciate my good friend, Father Chuck Treadwell and Chris. They've really made me part of their family. And that's really special. Are the pigs here? Did Tom and Bob make it? Stand up, guys. These two guys are part of that long-standing colleague group. You know, good colleagues have helped me through the lean and fat years. It's also wonderful to have Jan here, our executive presbyter. She worked with great energy and insight in helping us develop a plan of transition that didn't go through a long interim time. And so, Jan, everybody here says thank you. And then there may be others here, but I saw Clay Brantley come in, and Clay was a newly married pastor, moved to that metropolis of Sherman when we were there with his new wife, and we've been good friends ever since. And Clay and Krista, thank you for being here. You've given me a lot of credit for ministry at Trinity, but it has been a team effort. Mally has been a faithful colleague working side by side with me for over half of my tenure at Trinity. I just figured that up. It's over half. A great deal of what has been accomplished would not have been possible without her leadership and encouragement over these nearly 14 years that we have labored together side by side. I could not have asked for a more faithful, talented, dedicated colleague in ministry. Tammy Boyles has been here as long as I. Tammy came the same Sunday that Rebecca and I showed up. It's been fun to watch her grow in knowledge and wisdom from volunteer to full-time certified professional. She has led Trinity into a sustainable, well-focused, life-changing youth ministry. And it's been fun to watch Miriam Ross study under her, and now Miriam is a leader in the presbytery with youth and nationally at Montreat. The same goes for the support staff in the office and building. They bring their best to Trinity day after day, and it shows. They try to anticipate what I'm going to forget. And they have a lot of work to do in that category. And then they go about filling the gap and reminding me, doing it. They're ahead of me all the time. They've pulled my fat out of the fire so many times, it's hard to describe. They strive for success, and they rarely get the credit that's due. So Stacy and Pam and September and Thomas and Lee and the long line of those who've served before them. Joan Allenson may get the award for serving in more ways than any other. Clerk of session, elder, secretary. She's just been such a tremendous. Today she was out there preparing for a baptism, moving chairs around and helping me set up sound. Tammy Holland also is one. She started out in childcare and singing in the choir, and then she became a leader of youth, children. Then she became the director of music, and then she became administrative. You just can't keep a job. I'm sorry, but, you know, and tremendous support, a dear friend. It's been a long, slow transformation in our planning for worship. When I first came to Trinity, I usually didn't have a worship plan together until Thursday or Friday morning at times for Sunday. And today, if we aren't planning 3 to 4 months ahead, the music and worship art staff gets nervous. When worship comes together in a glorious unity of spirit, theme, and emotion, it's been because of careful planning and hard research from a team of people that includes Don Roberts and Carol Ann and Mally and Phyllis and Barb Williamson and Jennifer Jones and via Jennifer, the sound team. Dr. Tippett, Phyllis Tippett has contributed in the educational ministry for adults, but she also works for planning, for stewardship, worship leadership, and pastoral care. She also is a geologist, so, you know, whether it's she's drilling down in the ground for oil or trying to find a way to plan for the future for Trinity, she knows how to do that. The Reverend Ralph Graham has pushed me along to understand stewardship. He's very understanding, and he also is amazing in pastoral care, both in crisis and long term. Jeannie works alongside with him with the youth. Helen Fitzhugh and Danielle Coleman have been providing care and encouragement for our younger Trinitarians. They really help welcome people for that first visit, along with Jen Zaccarella, who's also a drummer. And Jen gets the word out on the street, and Mally and I have seen a difference in visiting. Jen is really working that web page and the social media and other things. So, I mean, it is a large body of volunteers, elders, deacons, treasurers. We have a team of treasurers and ministry team leaders. We have the most professionally run Stephen ministry group in the state of Texas, I may dare say in the nation. We have men's groups, women's groups, small groups, Sunday school, class teachers, creation care team, MOPS, Bazaar, mission teams, Open Heart, Scouting, they're all contributing immensely to what we are celebrating today. So it's been my privilege to work with as the author to the letter of Hebrews towards the end of the New Testament, called A Great Cloud of Witnesses. And we've also had the support on staff and as elders and officers, deacons, of spouses who have been behind the scenes making this possible. You don't, as you could ask my son, you don't do this work without a support of your family. And so to all those spouses who are so wonderfully creative. There's been a few challenges along the way. The telecom bust hit hard. I mean, we were blowing and going, and North Texas just put the brakes on almost overnight. And buildings were empty and people lost their jobs. They moved away. The budget got hit. The telecom bust was big. And then there were the Worship Wars, a church reality show that was filmed at Trinity at times. No, that's a joke. It's not really a joke. We've been through some painful staff transitions. We've weathered long and hard building campaigns. In the first major expansion, the back wall of the fellowship hall was a piece of black plastic. And when the wind blew, you knew it. And when it was hot, it was hot. When it was cold, it was cold. The kitchen didn't work. Logos had pizza so many times that today the sight of a pepperoni pizza just sends me back to a place I don't want to return. We started coming to work sometimes with shorts because it was so hot. Other times with work boots and heavy jeans, and other times with hard hats. There was the Great Recession. First Baptist laid off 50 people in one day. And we made a commitment not to lay off a single person. We would become very creative. And we managed to weather that, but it was hard. We've met these obstacles in faith and hope. When I was in seminary, like all pastors in training, I had this vision of what church would be like once I became a pastor. And all of my dreams of leadership and service came true. Trinity Presbyterian Church of McKinney, Texas, which is not just McKinney, but a region here, has become the church of my dreams. Whether I'm driving slowly around the church parking lot, I take the long way around sometimes. And I'll drive starting at that entrance, and I'll just slowly drive and pause at the celebration garden, which I still can't believe, and just drive around. And I look at the building and the grounds, and they're so beautiful. And then I walk through the halls, and Chuck and Chris were talking with me. They're church people, and they know this stuff. And they were talking about, the signage and the pictures and the posters and the graphics that it just says, we know what we're doing, and we're glad you're here. It's been through sitting down with elders in a session, as Jesse talked about, to pray and to contemplate and act on ministry plans, and glancing into rooms as I walk through the church on any day, and I'll see children and youth and adults actively engaged in learning. It's seeing the monthly balance sheet of expenses and contributions, but knowing the sacrifice behind the balance sheet. It's commissioning mission teams and watching visitors being welcomed It's gathering in worship and hearing a piece of music or liturgy that is just so perfect for the day and moment, and knowing what it took to bring that into place. We did a baptism this morning. We had about 50, 60 people here in the celebration garden. It was the only place we had open that wasn't being set up for something else. And the family was a little nervous when I said we're going to go into the garden. And I think they had the vision of the other garden. But when they came in, they were crying because it was so beautiful the way it was set up. And it was such a beautiful place. And everybody had a wonderful moment. Weddings and funerals and communing with the saints. I love every part of it. Thank you for letting me into your lives and hearts. I will miss being a part of Trinity on a daily basis. I'm officially on staff till July 19th, but after Sunday, I'm passing the baton to Woody and Mally. I've got an office to clean out. Some people are beginning to be nervous. Joan Allenson. I will get it cleaned out. There's files to tidy up. There's a few lingering chores yet undone, but you will never not be a part of me because, as Paul wrote, you are in me. You are part of me. Thank you.
Which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For
I had some remarks prepared, but I'm getting hungry, so I'll tell you personally later, Patrick. I have got to name the folks who have made this incredible time possible. They have literally been working for months. The committee that has planned not only this time, but also the reception to follow, consists of Bud and Sharon Ward, Catherine Morris, Kyle Brock, Linda Hackney, Joan Allenson, Connie Clemens, Barb and Ray Williamson, Barbara Lindsay, John Sefcik, and as Patrick mentioned, under the steady and able leadership of Beth Sefcik. Countless other folks have been involved in the execution of everything, but I do want to especially mention two folks. Karen Landis did the slideshow that played before we began. I'm hoping it'll be playing as we're in Eva Joplin Hall as well. She was so thorough in gathering up older photos particularly, so thankful. And then Morgan Blair did our wonderful video, and that is a gift we'll treasure forever. I want to thank also everybody who participated in the program today. Some of you came a great distance to do that. And then, of course, our office staff, particularly Stacy and Pam and Thomas, have been working hard to get both the program and the facility put together for today. So a few notes before we leave. First of all, everyone is invited, and I'm going to say not invited, you are commanded to go to the reception. There is so much food. I don't want to have to be trying to figure out what to do with all of those leftovers. It's beautiful. It will be a delightful time. So in Eva Joplin Hall, there is some seating for those who wish, and there's also additional seating in the McCoy Chapel as well. So mingle, visit with Patrick and Rebecca and their family and one another. Also in the chapel is a photo booth, and it's the committee's hope that everyone who's here stop by and have your picture made at that booth so that Patrick and Rebecca will have photos of everyone who's present to remember this special day. And to the committee that planned this event, perk up guys and listen to me, you all are going to have your picture made at 3 p.m. So whatever you're doing, committee, go in there or you're going to be in trouble with Beth at 3 p.m. So we'll close now as we do all of our worship services, singing Eagle's Wings. And Patrick and Rebecca will leave as we're doing that, so that you can visit with them there. But let's sing Eagle's Wings both today and tomorrow as we worship as our prayer for you and Rebecca. So let's close with that as our closing prayer. Please stand.
And God will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. Go in peace, and may the good Lord bless and keep you. May the good Lord bless and keep you till we meet again. Amen, amen, amen. Have a blessed week.